Destinations Part 2, Take 2. Some of you were having some issues with jumping in and making comments a few minutes ago. So I'm hoping that everybody can get back on board with a refreshed window. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with our next topic, which is Mexico. Mexico, if you guys, hey Candace, hey Coy, if anybody has any questions about Alaska from our conversations that we had, please feel free to type those in at any time. I had some more fun facts to share with you. But since we're having some issues with the live feed, and it's probably because the internet is so bogged down. Melissa, I'm glad you can find us. I'm not gonna pull those out. Okay, so while we're waiting for everybody to come back to the table, I am going to type in the URL to what hey Kelsey, glad you're back. The URL of what I would recommend you visit if you're looking to learn a little bit more about traveling in Mexico. Okay. Again, if you guys are just rejoining me, if you have any questions about Alaska, feel free to type them in and I'll get them answered as best I can. Okay. So Mexico is a huge topic. I mean, there are so many things you can say about Mexico. So it's hard for me to cover the whole expanse of Mexico in one sitting. But I'm going to kind of, hey Angie, I'm glad you could jump back on. I'm going to try to cover a couple key points. So for a trivia question, Mexico is divided by states. I don't know if anybody knew that, but how many states are in the country of Mexico? If you know that, you get an extra point, an extra entry. Okay, so while you guys are typing in your answer, my second part of that question is, to what continent does Mexico belong? Is it Central America, South America, North America? So I have two questions, two opportunities to get some extra points here. All right, so the URL that I typed in, when you bring that up, it will come up actually in Spanish, 31. Oh, you're so close, Kelsey, you're so close. 32, Angie, you got it. 32 is the number of states that are in Mexico. Good job, Angie. And Coy, you are correct. Mexico is part of the North American continent. It is considered part of North America. Jess, I'm glad you're back. So if you go to this URL, all the way on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see a flag. And usually when you type it in and you bring it up first, English is not going to be the language that it pops up in. So make sure you go down to your flag and you pull up the British flag so that you have it in English, okay? Okay, so great. So yes, 32 states are all part of Mexico, and it is part of the North American continent. I'm sorry, Jess, I'm not sure why you're having problems. I know what it is. It's probably because we have so many people on the internet right now. Mexico is the 6th most visited country in the world. It has 6,000 miles of coastline. And when we think of visiting Mexico, many of us think about Cancun, Puerto Vallarta, Cabo San Lucas, Cozumel. You know, we're thinking about those beautiful beaches, and whether they're on the Atlantic and Caribbean side or whether they're on the Pacific side. You know, we're thinking about the gorgeous beachfronts and fantastic food and tequila that Mexico has. but there's so much more that Mexico has to offer. There's so much in the internal part of Mexico, the culture, the history, Mexico City. There are 35 UNESCO World Heritage Sites in Mexico. 35. That's a lot of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. As a matter of fact, I don't remember when I'm prepping these for history and what, I've not seen that many UNESCO World Heritage Sites in one country. There are 28 World Cultural Heritage Sites and 187 archaeological sites. So archaeological sites, that can be anything from the, like the ruins, the Mayan ruins that you can visit when you go to Cozumel or Cancun or Costa Maya. It's been part of, it has a fantastic, vibrant indigenous culture. There are 7 World Natural Heritage Sites. So when you go to Cozumel, for instance, the barrier reef that surrounds Cozumel is considered one of their natural heritage sites, so it's protected. So when you snorkel or dive in Cozumel, you know, you're not allowed to touch anything. You have to wear sunscreen that it doesn't clog up the reef. It's very specific. What other things can we talk about Mexico? How do you visit Mexico? Okay, so there's a lot of different ways that you can go to visit Mexico. Oh, I know what the other question that I had, another trivia question. How many states, American states, border Mexico? Okay, and I know some of you are having problems typing in. If you text me the answer, I'll count that. But if you can type it in, I would prefer that. So how many states, United States, border Mexico? Okay, so the most popular ways that people travel in Mexico is basically along the coastlines that we were talking about. The Yucatan Peninsula, which includes Costa Maya, Cozumel, Cancun, or the other side, which includes Puerto Vallarta, the Riviera Maya area, and Cabo San Lucas, which is close to Baja California. Most of those, 3, 4, close, 4. Jessica, you're correct. There are 4 states that border Mexico. Those 4 states are Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. They all border. Coy got that too. They all border Mexico. Okay, so these areas that I just mentioned, Cancun, Cozumel, Puerto Vallarta, the Riviera Maya area, Cabo San Lucas, are very well known for their all-inclusive vacation spots. So an all-inclusive is a resort that you go to where everything is included when you go. Your food, your beverages. Usually the only thing extra that you pay for is if you're going to do any tours outside of the resort area. If you're going to go diving, if you're going to go take the jeeps through the jungle, etc. So that's the most popular way to visit Mexico right now in today's travel world. There's other resorts available in these locations as well that aren't all inclusive. So if you prefer to venture into the city areas and partake of Mexican cuisine without, being on the resort grounds, there's plenty of those types of locations as well. And there's your private vacation homes that you can take, if you have longer to visit and you want to do some real in-depth exploring, you can also rent one of those and enjoy, learning how to cook the cultural cuisine. Okay, the other most popular way, the other popular way to see Mexico is by cruise ship. Cozumel Progreso and Costa Maya are extremely popular Western Caribbean ports. As a matter of fact, the Cozumel port is so heavily trafficked by cruise ships. I dread to think what their economy is going through right now while we're on this suspension of cruising. But even if you just do a 3 or a 4 day, normally Cozumel is the port that you visit. It's a fantastic port. You were close, Angie. There's 4 states that border Mexico. But by cruise ship is another way to visit Mexico. Along the western coast, you usually leave from Los Angeles, San Diego, or even San Francisco, and you travel down to Cabo San Lucas and Puerto Vallarta. And it's a whole different type of scenery that you see on that side. Plus the water is not your Caribbean warm blue that you have, you know, in the Costa Maya, Cozumel, Cancun area. It's chillier, and the wildlife is different. So, for instance, I'm supposed to be going next spring down the coast of the western Mexico coastline, and I'm hoping, the way I timed it, that I get to see whale sharks. That's been on my bucket list, to swim with whale sharks, and I'm really hoping that that happens. So Mexico, again, it's 32 states. The border of Mexico that borders Texas and New Mexico, California, travel through those areas is somewhat limited. At times, you know, you have to check the government policies on travel in certain Mexican states, just to make sure that you're entering a safe area. So if you're traveling by car, there aren't too many escorted tours available. There are some, and those visit those UNESCO heritage sites and those archaeological sites that you find in Mexico. So there are some of those available, but typically when people travel to Mexico, again, it's by plane or by cruise ship. Hey, Loretta, I'm glad you joined. Okay, so we're almost at the hour mark, and we had a little bit of difficulty, so I want to quickly jump to the Florida Keys, our last destination for today. Any questions about Mexico while we're jumping over to that? All right, Florida Keys. Hey, Loretta. So we went, little history, we went from Alaska, living in Anchorage, to living in Key West, Florida. So one extreme to the other, right? Key West is one of the most gorgeous places that you'll ever visit, the Florida Keys themselves. So I'm going to give you some fun facts about the Florida Keys. US 1, which travels from Miami all the way to the tip, which is Key West. The Florida Keys are actually considered an archipelago of islands. And I'm going to tell you how many islands are in this. Well, actually, I'm going to ask you guys how many islands are in the archipelago. That highway is one of the most famous highways in the United States. It's US 1. It's also called the Overseas Highway. Anybody want to guess why it's called the Overseas Highway? And I'm going to let you guys type in your answers. Okay. Since the 1980s, there's been 23 artificial reefs placed around the Florida Keys. Most of them have been ships that were sunk on purpose to regenerate the sea life and the coral reef that sometimes get decimated by the tropical storms and hurricanes that come through. Green sea turtles that live in the ocean waters around the Florida Keys are considered an endangered species. So if you've ever been snorkeling or diving, oh, Angie, you got it. There's 1,700 islands as part of the Florida Keys. Florida Keys from start to finish is 137.3 miles. It's not very long, not very big. But yes, you are correct, 1,700, but only about 42 of those islands are inhabited. Duval Street in Key West, for those of you who have ever been to Key West, Duval Street is kind of like our Bourbon Street in New Orleans. It's very known for its bars and its pub scene, lots of cuisine. They do carnival in September, October, very much like we do Mardi Gras in, around the Mardi Gras season. So Duval Street is very, very famous. And when people visit a lot of those pubs and restaurants on Duval Street, it's known as the Duval Crawl, humorously. So Duval Street in Key West is known as the longest street in the world, not because of actual mileage, but because it runs from coast to coast. Interesting, right? So on one side, it's the Atlantic. On the other side, it's the Gulf. Okay, so there are 3 types of habitats that are found in the Florida Keys. Those habitats are hardwood hammocks, mangrove forests, and saltwater marshes. So a lot of the islands in the Florida Keys are built from a combination of those habitats and coral that has died and built on top of each other. Can anybody ever heard or eaten what we call, it's a big seashell, it's called a conch, C-O-N-C-H. It's pronounced conch. K-O-N-K is actually how you pronounce it. So just some fun facts about the Florida Keys. Okay. Did anybody watch the video of the diving that I downloaded to my event for the Florida Keys? Okay, I'll let you type in your answer to that. So some of the major islands, the major cities in the Keys, starts with Key Largo. So when you leave Miami, if you're driving down US 1, you're going to end up first in Key Largo. There's a number of resorts that you can stay at in Key Largo, great diving locations. There's a national park, National Seashore Park, that is right off the coast of Key Largo that has some fantastic diving. You continue from Key Largo, and about halfway down to Key West, there's an island called Marathon. Marathon has some wonderful wildlife refuge. They have a dolphin sanctuary, and they also sometimes, when there's whales and other animal sea life that get stranded in the Florida Keys area, they end up at this wildlife refuge. When we were living there, it was maybe a month or so after I got certified as a scuba diver, there was a pod of beluga whales that got stranded, and they brought the whales to Marathon, and there was round-the-clock care to take care of the whales, to keep them wet, to keep them fed, to keep them above, because they were so weak, to keep them breathing, to keep them above the water. So I'll never forget that experience. Unfortunately, it was a pod of 4. It was a mom, her 2 babies, and the father, and only the mother and one of the babies ended up surviving. But it was really cool. But that's in the Marathon area. So again, there's some really wonderful sights to see. And I recommend, if you've never been to the Keys and you have some time, to do it by car. You start from Miami, stay in Key Largo for a few nights, go diving, go snorkeling, go fishing. The fishing in the Keys is something that you'll never ever forget. Deep water, mangrove fishing. I mean, there's just the fishing there is just fantastic. And if you go in the right time of the year, you can also go snorkeling or diving for lobster or rock crab, depending on what time of the year you go. Luke says, hi, Oma. Tell my sweet boy I said hello. Sweet boy. Okay. There's another island called Islamorada. Islamorada it's smaller. It's one of the smaller keys, but it is also known for its beautiful, and a lot of people think Florida Keys, they think beach. I'm going to have to tell you that the Florida Keys are not known for their beaches per se. When you think of beach, you're thinking white sand. Yes, there's coconut trees and there's all of that environment, but the majority of the sand that's been brought into the beaches, especially in Key West, was brought there. It's coral. The Florida Keys are surrounded by a barrier reef. So sandy beaches are not as popular as everybody thinks they are in the Keys. So that doesn't mean they don't have beaches, but you'll find that if you're staying any amount of time in the Florida Keys, you're really not going to have a lot of time to sit around in a beach. You're going to be out on the water on a catamaran or a boat, enjoying the water itself. Then you get down to Key West. Key West is an amazing little city. It's about 7 miles square. It's not very large. And I'm looking for my Key West destination guide. And again, like last week, I downloaded all the destination guides. If you want copies of any of them, just shoot me a message and I'll send those to you. So the main thing I want to tell you about when you go to Key West is there's a number of places that you can stay. There's major hotel chains, there's smaller hotel chains, and there's some bed and breakfasts that are absolutely amazing. You can also visit by cruise ship. So the itinerary that I was supposed to be going on starting next weekend, the first destination was Key West. But I'm not going until September on that one. But if you go by cruise ship, you're only there for a few hours and you're just scratching a little piece of the surface of Key West. When you stay in Key West, one of the things that I highly recommend that you do is go visit the Dry Tortugas. The Dry Tortugas are about 90 minutes outside of Key West by boat, by ferry, and you're actually heading towards Cuba when you go. And it's an island with a Civil War prison built on it. But the snorkeling and the diving in the Dry Tortugas area, and they were found by pirates, Pirates of the Caribbean, back in the 1600s. So the Dry Tortugas were known to be like a midway point between Cuba and the coastline of the Americas. So I highly recommend, if you go visit the Keys, if you're interested in taking a stateside trip and you want that tropical vibe and you want that tropical feel, but you don't want to go sit on a beach in Destin or Pensacola, and those places are fantastic. But if you want a little bit more to do and you really want to explore, I highly recommend that you go visit the Florida Keys and do it by car. Fly into Miami, rent a car, and if you can, rent a convertible, drive down US 1 and spend a few nights in Key Largo, maybe a night or two in Islamorada or in Marathon, and then at least 4 to 5 days down in Key West. And you can fly out of Key West. You can turn in your car and fly out of there, or you can drive all the way back up to Miami. But that's the true way to experience the Florida Keys. The best time to go, any time of the year, really. January, February, it gets a little chilly, but the beautiful thing about Key West is that it has a temperate climate all year round. It does get warm, humid, but there's always a breeze coming off the ocean during the warmer months. So there's really not a bad time of the year to go. You know, if you're looking for that stateside trip because you don't want to leave the country right now, the Florida Keys, if you pick the right time of the year, September, October, April, May, as long as you're avoiding those holiday weeks, it's more economical. If you're going June, July, and August, of course your prices are going to be higher because that's the time of the year that everybody's out of school. If you really want to, and you don't mind chillier water, November, December is a great time to go. So I was lucky enough to work in the Florida Keys on a catamaran and a dive boat, and it was probably one of the best experiences of my life. And you know, it was very seasonal. As a matter of fact, we always joked, oh, it's cruise ship day. And, you know, here I am selling cruises. So it kind of comes around, right? Okay, so we're after the 1 hour mark. I want to go ahead and get things wrapped up. So a couple of announcements before we finish up today. And if you have any questions, feel free to type them in now and we can hit them before we finish up. So a couple of you have already, like Angie and Amber, I don't think Amber is with us today, have participated in For the Love of Travel contest. 2 weeks, the contest has been going on for 2 weeks. Yesterday they announced, our CP home office announced last week's winner. And the winner for that particular, for yesterday, the page that it was connected to, the CP planner, the franchise that it was connected to, they had over 200 comments on that post For the Love of Travel. I've got 2. Come on, friends. It's pinned to the top of my page, For the Love of Travel. Read the directions and enter. You can win weekly prize, and then you get drawn into the grand prize, which is a celebrity cruise for 2 to the Caribbean. So participate. Exactly. YouTube channel. I've been playing with YouTube because, you know, we've all had a little bit of extra time the past few weeks. My YouTube channel is Great White Travels with Annette. Please subscribe. I'll be posting some additional videos, and I've been trying to kind of feel comfortable with YouTube. I know it's the go-to for a lot of people, younger people, but it's Great White Travels with Annette. This video and the video that we did prior will actually get posted on that channel after we finish. I have a girls trip on the Adventure of the Seas next March. It's an event on my Facebook page. I'm offering right now a $25 rewards card for the next person who books into that group. So that can be used as OBC. Right now, myself and Melissa are the only ones in that group, and I'd really like to get that group built so we can have some fun. It's a 5-day trip on the Adventure of the Seas in March of 2021. Since my Alaska sailing was canceled for August next year, you know, I've spent a lot of time processing and thinking while I'm out there in the yard working. Next year, I'm going to do 2 Alaska groups. I'm going to do one in early June, and then again, one in late August. So for those of you who are on my pool management team, guess what? I'll probably be gone at the beginning of June next year. And then again at the end of August. So I haven't selected the ships yet. One might be Royal and one might be Holland. I'm kind of playing with itineraries. I know definitely they're both going to be inside passage itineraries to get the most out of the visual aspects of Alaska. So, you know, if you're really interested in Alaska and you have that on your bucket list, that might be something for you to consider. Yay, Loretta, we'd love to have you. Again, next week, we'll announce the $100 Carnival gift card winner. I have a lot of names that got dropped into the hat a number of times today, so cool beans. Keep sharing the post, keep liking the post, Invite your friends to like my page. Next week will be our last live for the time being. It'll be at 1 o'clock again. What I'm going to do for next week is I'm going to give you an update on where the world of travel is after COVID. There's been a lot of projections and discussions on what travel is going to come back immediately, what travel is going to be taking its time, you know, because of the destinations. We're also going to spend a couple minutes talking about groups, group travel versus FIT travel, insurance, because that topic has come up a lot with COVID, and people who didn't buy insurance when they traveled and what happened. So we're going to spend a couple minutes talking about insurance. I always advocate for any of my clients to purchase insurance, whether it's the vendor insurance or insurance that we offer through cruise planners. And then I want you guys to think about if we want to do another Destinations live. And I was thinking if we do another one, you know, maybe at the end of April, early May, because Governor Edwards announced yesterday that we may be dragging this thing through, you know, May. I hope not, because I think I'll lose my mind. However, if we do, then I'll probably do another one in May. And Kelsey had requested the British Isles, so that's at the top of the list. And I've gotten a lot of requests for the South Pacific and Australia. So if we do another Destinations live, those are going to be the topics that we talk about then. So the British Isles, South Pacific, and Australia, New Zealand. So another great live. I love talking to everybody. Next week, I think I'm going to try to do a Zoom invite so that I can see everybody's faces. I'm actually going to be playing with Zoom this coming week with my pool management team. So next week for the event, watch for the Zoom invite. Okay, any questions for today? You want to hear about Maine, Coy? Okay, I actually have a client that's looking at going to Maine right now. Or, well, she's not traveling right now. She wants to go in the summer once, you know, travel is open back up. So we can definitely download Zoom as an app on your phone too. Good job. I didn't know that. Okay. Any other questions, comments? I'll announce the winner for today in a few minutes. And make that announcement on who won today's $25 rewards card that can be applied to any travel package, cruise or land, with a little goodie bag. So I'll make that announcement in the event here shortly. And if nothing else, I'll see you guys next week, same time, same channel. Au revoir, auf Wiedersehen, aloha.